Mr. Speaker, when this bill the debate began earlier today, I really did not think that at this hour we will still be on our feet debating this bill, because having looked at the bill, I thought it was straightforward. I thought that we were giving legislative authority to an organization to conduct itself for the protection of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, the resources collected by the government, and to report to the Parliament on that conduct of that committee. And I thought it was simple. But you know, Mr. Speaker, having listened to colleagues on the opposition benches, I recognize that though I intended not to spend time on this bill, that I have to at least give it 15 or 20 minutes. Mr. Speaker, I heard statements from the opposition benches today that I believe the opposition member thought was euphemism. But a snake oil salesman have come to the floor to sell his snake oil is not euphemism to me. It appears, Mr. Speaker, to be bordering on a violation of the rules of this House, because it's on the floor. And so, Mr. Speaker, when I heard that statement, I thought, how callous can members of this House be? But, Mr. Speaker, what was presented by the Minister of Finance is a bill that speaks to the governance structure of the PAC to oversee, to research, to inquire into the conduct of any government department and to report to Parliament on its findings. Mr. Speaker, I heard speakers say here in this Parliament that we're not serious about this Public Accounts Committee, and even making reference to previous conduct of Public Accounts Committee. And Mr. Speaker, I reflected and I wonder if government just began on the 22nd day of February 2015 as if there was never government in this federation before. How convenient it is that members on the opposition could forget a long history, 20-year history of deception in this country, of doing things that were unconstitutional, of spending money recklessly. How can they simply forget that 20-year history? For example, Mr. Speaker, they spoke about this PAC and what a PAC headed by the Honorable Mark Brantley did and did not do. Mr. Speaker, if you go through the budgets, all of the budgets under the previous administration, they never budgeted even 10 cents. Not even a dime did they budget for any PAC to function in the country. Not even 10 cents.
Yes.
And they claim that they were serious about Public Accounts Committee and that this administration is not serious. Yes. So, Mr. Speaker, if they want to talk about seriousness, they must not think that government began on the 22nd day of February 2015, because that history is there. The history is there which tells us that there was PACs appointed, yes, but no money budgeted.
Yes.
That is it.
That needs to be investigated by the PAC.
Exactly. That should be investigated by the PAC. And Mr. Speaker, going a step further, the argument on the other side is that the bill provides for the opposition leader to be given an opportunity to be asked to chair this committee. I'm paraphrasing.
An opportunity to be asked, that is something.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there was a public accounts committee. There was a public accounts committee, Mr. Speaker.
Members.
There was, Mr. Speaker, a public accounts committee. The Honorable Hugh Heiliger was leader of the opposition. The Honorable Hugh Heiliger was leader of the opposition. Yet, Mr. Speaker, when the opportunity was given to appoint someone to chair the Public Accounts Committee under that administration, they appointed someone else to be the chairman. The appointment was given to Mr. Malcolm Gishard. It would appear, Mr. Speaker, to us that the government, the opposition now, thinks that government only began on the 22nd day of February 2015, that the history of that government is not known to all of us. So I do not understand why conveniently members on the opposition have forgotten that there's a history that can be referred to in the way they conducted business in this country. Mr. Speaker, I have heard members on the opposition benches say that the audit reports do not capture surpluses, deficits, so that the Public Accounts Committee can look into them. But before I go there, Mr. Speaker, I want to advise my friends on the opposition benches. And I'm sure the honorable member for number 2 in particular would have heard this phrase before: fishing expedition. It would appear from what they have been saying that they want an opportunity to go on a fishing expedition. That's how it appears. They appear, Mr. Speaker, to be looking for things that they ought not to look for. Mr. Speaker, one member even said that in some Caribbean countries, that the Public Accounts Committee has the authority to look into the conduct of corporations, public corporations, the way the government is the majority shareholder. It appears, Mr. Speaker, as if the Public Accounts Committee wants to look into National Bank. That's how it appears, because the government is the majority shareholder in the National Bank. And the National Bank has a regime for audit, public audit, and has shareholders to report to. So I do not understand why, Mr. Speaker, members of the opposition will go in that direction. And so, Mr. Speaker, that appears to me as if the opposition members would like to go on a fishing expedition.
Or worse. Or worse.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member for number 3 refers to the British committee as a select committee. I want him to note carefully that in our jurisdiction, this Public Accounts Committee is a standing committee. It is a committee that is a standing committee, and that is why we have to give it the legislative approach, why we have to use legislation to give it the way to function. A standing committee, Mr. Speaker, could be like the appointment of the public, like of the guy in the United States of America. What's his name? Mueller? And so he could rove around and go where he wants because they give him some appointment that says anything that comes from that. Mr. Speaker, the standing committee, special committee, standing committee has to have some way to conduct itself. So it don't rove all over the place looking for things that are not there. Mr. Speaker, let me just point out, which I think the honourable members have missed. The honourable members have missed this important point. If I can find here the auditor
76.
at 76. Here, Mr. Speaker, is what it says at 76.
Constitution.
And here's what it says.
Constitution.
The Director of Audit, the Constitution, the Constitution, there shall be a Director of Audit whose office shall be a public office. The Director of Audit shall A. Satisfy himself that all monies that have been appropriated by Parliament and disbursed have been applied to the purposes to which they were so appropriated, and that the expenditure conforms to the authority that governs it. Mr. Speaker, having read that, I want to turn to the powers of this committee. Under item 7, here's where it says the powers and duties of the committee are to examine the report of the Director of Audit that is tabled in the National Assembly. If the Director of Audit tables a report in the National Assembly and they're to examine that report, that committee ought necessarily to take that report of the Director of Audit and determine what areas to inquire into. You can't have both organizations doing the same thing. The audit report to the Parliament, it is tabled here, and it is then looked at by this committee, and you determine what to inquire into based on what the audit report says. In B of the powers, it says to report to the National Assembly with any comment it thinks fit on any items or matters in the report of the Director of Audit referred to in paragraph A, or any circumstances connected with it that committee thinks should be drawn to the attention of the National Assembly. That's the role of the Public Accounts Committee. And I do not understand why a simple bill put before the Parliament to provide for the conduct of the committee is creating so much contention, keeping us into the night. Mr. Speaker, I want to point to a few things which I would like the members opposite to pay attention to. And before I do that, I want to take issue with another point made by the opposition about evidence in public. I mean, Mr. Speaker, if I were a public officer as a permanent secretary, and I'm going to give evidence, the option to give evidence in private appeals to me much more than to give it in public. Why would you want to expose public servants to that kind of public scrutiny when they're only giving evidence, maybe even put them at risk? Why would you want to do that? Private evidence has always been taken, even by the court. Even by the courts. So I do not understand why we have to make sure that that is done in public. Our approach is to make sure that we protect the persons so that they can speak freely. They can speak freely, put the evidence before the Public Accounts Committee so that they do not have to be worried about things that they have said and be castigated unnecessarily in the public for things that they say in the public. Mr. Speaker, and that is why the protection is there, of course, the protection is in the bill. But let me point, Mr. Speaker, to things which I want the opposition to pay attention to. Because, Mr. Speaker, in 2004, this is the audit report of the Director of Audit. In 2004,
laid before the Parliament.
This report, which was laid before the Parliament, reads on page 3. Here's what it reads. Capital account deficit of 2.29 million recorded. You see that, Mr. Speaker? Any Public Accounts Committee hearing that must understand their role is to look into why that happened.
That's what
They
it's
don't
about.
understand the law.
Why that happened?
They are useless to the Parliament.
That's what it's about.
Yes.
Useless.
Why did you budget? Why do you have a deficit of $2.29 million?
Yes. They don't
That's what they look into. Yes, that's what it is. And the Act provides for you to the tools are there. The tools are there to be able to look into it.
simple as that.
You can summon members of the public, summon the permanent secretary, summon people to give evidence, and also bring documents. But you want to summon the cleaner?
Yeah, that's what they were.
You want to summon the poor drain sweeper?
Yeah.
Junior clerk.
Yeah.
You want to summon a junior clerk? So she ain't appointed. And because she ain't appointed, you have her doing and giving certain answers to you that puts her at risk. The person in charge of her is the permanent secretary. And that person is the chief accounting officer of the ministry. What's wrong with that?
He didn't even know that.
What is wrong with that? Mr. Speaker, that same page 3 of the 2004 audit report says the accumulated deficit now exceeds 82 million. You know what that means? That's something that the Public Accounts Committee is supposed to be digging into. Why are you having and growing this huge deficit? At one point even reaching 3 billion.
Yes.
That's what the Public Accounts Committee is supposed to do.
Yes.
Look into why administrative things are breaking down, causing this kind of deficit.
What you
That is what it's supposed to do.
Yes.
What you reading from? What you reading from?
This is the audit report, 2004.
Director of Audit, is it?
Yes,
They say he's already pitched them.
yes. They say his picture say they having no information. Taking snipes at the auditor. You know, the Auditor General. Demeaning the work of the Auditor General to say they don't have nothing but pictures.
Disrespecting.
Having nothing but pictures.
They didn't understand what
I
they
mean,
What do you think you for?
here it says the outstanding public debt now is over 204 million.
What year it was? What year
This was
it
2004.
But you have too many people. What year it
2004.
was?
Man, if I'm a Public Accounts Committee member and I hear that, man, when I go Public Accounts Committee, that is what I want to know, how it gets so.
That's where he did post.
How it gets so.
That's where he did.
And what is happening, what the government doing bad, wrong, that is causing us to be in that dilemma. That is what the country wants to know.
That's where he
The country wants to know how you get into a position that you are carrying your public debt, running away like a runaway horse,
Yes.
without control, and can't see anything for it.
So the director, I didn't see that, and he waited till you.
The audit right in here. Mr. Speaker, this book, this audit report is replete. It is replete with evidence of things going wrong in the government.
Yes.
But the audit report, the auditor don't have the authority to call no witness. And to keep them into, to call them and make them give evidence. That's what the Public Accounts Committee is for.
That's what he want.
And I'm wondering whether members of the opposition really want to be part of this Public Accounts Committee, you know.
That's what he want.
Because if they don't vote for this bill, I would like to see which of them will then decide they want to be in the Public Accounts Committee. That's why I'm going to call a division and get them to vote. Get them to vote and say whether they want the committee or not.
You don't even understand how the division goes.
Whether I understand it or not, when I call it, don't vote. Don't vote. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, at page 9, at page 9 of the same report, it reads, recurrent expenditure for 2004 amounted to $81,131,117, and recurrent revenue amounted to $78,446,684. It goes on to say, in fact, recurrent revenue increased. Member for number 2, did you hear that? The current revenue increased. Remember what you contradicted the honorable member from number 9 about? It says revenue increased 12.91 million or 19.7%, whereas expenditure increased $9.41 million or 12.8% over the previous year's level. That's what it says. You said the audit report don't have those in, but it's here. It's right here. But it goes on to say, the result on the recurrent account was therefore another deficit of $4.68 million. Another deficit. When did the Public Accounts Committee hear that? That is what they're called upon to do. Go and see where you have deficit and dig into it and ask for all the books and whatever you want to ask for and bring a report to the Parliament. Look, the Public Accounts Committee is a creature of the Parliament.
You didn't want that, you know.
Let's face it, the Public Accounts Committee
Function.
is a creature of the Parliament. It gets its life from the Act, National Assembly Elections Act. That Act, at Section 70, is what gives life, well, to the Public Accounts Committee. I'm saying that it is a creature of the Parliament.
Yes.
It is the Parliament it must report to. Bring its report here to the Parliament, and then whatever happens, what Parliament says about the report is what we do. Not try to get a report to go grandstand in the public. That's not what it is. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that the work of this committee can be accomplished very easily by following the act, the bill that is put before us today. Mr. Speaker, I turn to 2005. This is the audit report. That was 2004. The audit report of 2005, Mr. Speaker. At page 2, it says, largest recurrent account deficit over 65 million. The largest recurrent account deficit over 65 million. Overall deficits exceed 125 million for the year. I don't understand, Mr. Speaker. If I'm a member of the Public Accounts Committee, this kind of information is something that you don't. How come, Mr. Speaker, the Parliament of the day, the government of the day did not want to know why the deficit's running so high, and get the Public Accounts Committee to act by funding them? Mr. Speaker, funding them, putting something in the budget to fund them. Mr. Speaker, the accumulated, chapter 4 of this thing says, on the analysis of the public accounts, it says, the accumulated deficit is now $684.8 million.
What year was that?
This was 2005.
2005.
This was 2005.
And he said nothing.
$684 million.
What year? You have to put it in
2005. 608. This is in the audit report, and the audit report is the thing, is what guides the conduct.
I've never seen one.
What guides the conduct of the Public Accounts Committee?
Yes.
There is so many things in here for the Public Accounts Committee to act upon. So many things. And yet, there are members in this Parliament who would think that we're taking away powers from the Public Accounts Committee. I don't see anything in this bill that prevents the Public Accounts Committee from going to a meeting and saying, look, the audit report says the deficit is 684.8 million. We want to examine that.
The financial secretary to come.
And we get the financial secretary to come and say, FS, why you move from 400 to 600? Show us why. What has been done? And bring the documents. Bring the documents. I don't see why they can't do that. And then you do a report which comes to the Parliament to say why. That's what it is. And once it is a public report tabled in this Parliament, you know that it is the public report. It will go to the public. You want to sit down to hear what the FS say, or what some junior clerk in the finance say. That's what you all want to know, Mele? Say.
That is what they are.
That's what you all want?
Yes.
You want serious work to be done?
They are not serious.
No. They want melee.
Yes.
They want soap opera.
Yes.
That's what they want.
You cannot make it out of
Yes.
And I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, there is no need for soap opera to get the results that you want.
transparency.
There's no need for soap opera. All you have to do, the Public Accounts Committee, convene the meeting, and you say, wow, accumulated deficit gone from 400 to 600. Let's see the documents. FSCOM answer why this is so. And you don't have to call the Minister of Government, contrary to what you're saying, my friend. The Financial Secretary, the Permanent Secretary, is the accounting officer, chief accounting officer in the ministry. And they can answer anything and everything, or should be able to answer anything and everything in the ministry. You don't need a Minister of Government for that.
I didn't say that.
It seems as if you want to put people on trial before you know what the facts are. So my brothers and sisters, my friends, my people who are listening out there, this former government would like to make a mockery of the way the government is conducted. In fact, I am surprised because after 20 years, no report from any Public Accounts Committee,
$3 billion.
no money budgeted for anything, $3 billion debt,
Yes, speak to that.
and Parliament convening in the night to
Yes.
fool our people.
No shame there.
No shame.
No shame.
After all of that, they come here to make people believe government began on the 22nd of February 2015. Government existed before February 2015, and the record cannot be expunged. The record is there for everyone to see that in those 20 years, huge deficits, escalating national debt, making a mockery of the parliament.
Corruption too.
Yes, that too. All of that. And after all of that, you see them, you hear them on the opposition benches, you think that there is Jesus Christ come.
Oh, yeah.
I can't believe it. Jesus Christ come. I can't believe it. I mean,
You're looking at it in the house.
look, Mr. Speaker, I have the audit report here of 2005 on page 10. Let me find page 10.
Never read it. So
Huh? They don't read it?
So
No.
you just pitch
They don't read it.
and people-
Page 10. The accounts for the financial year ending December 2005 disclose an overall deficit of 125 million. They used to have deficits fast, see? Every year they have deficit.
125 million.
$125 million deficit. I mean, the result of the recurrent
To say,
account was therefore another major deficit. I mean, I tired see deficit in this budget.
You're going well, very well.
Mr. Speaker, listen here. I was trying to remember, Mr. Speaker, which ministry certain members of the opposition were responsible for. But because I don't remember, I'll read this one. On the expenditure side, the Ministry of Public Works, Utilities, Transportation and Posts, Ministry of Tourism, Sports and Culture, and the Ministry of Finance, Finance, were the main contributors to the high level of expenditure by overspending their budgets by 33.87 million 2005 audit report.
What's the Minister of Finance next?
Well, trying to work out that one too.
Member for them.
And then it was number 6.
What's the rule?
Overspend by $33 million. When you overspend by $33 million, then the Public Accounts Committee come tell the country why.
Yes.
Call the meeting.
That's why they provide the funding.
Call the meeting. Call witnesses. Bring documents and show us why the Minister of Finance spent $33 million more than he should spend. That's what's supposed to happen. And then the report comes to Parliament. And the report is tabled before Parliament, and it's a public document.
do you know what they call hot ear?
Point. That's an excellent point.
But it is burning your hot ear that burn your ears. That's what you're talking. Hot ear burning your ears. That's what you're talking. So, Mr.
The other day is trying to stay.
32 million.
You disappoint me, Happy. You disappoint me.
I'm you're going good.
I'm just going to make one more point, Mr. Speaker, on this 2005 audit report. At page 25, it says on the statement of expenditure, the 2005 Appropriation Act passed on 22nd February 2005 authorized recurrent expenditure of $585,334. Let me repeat that. $357,585,334. And capital expenditure of $101,412,507. An expenditure budget totaling $458,997,841 against a revenue budget of $410,996,673, resulting in a financial gap of $48,001,168. So it means, Mr. Speaker, $48 million was the gap. The actual operation resulted, even though that was the gap, the actual operation resulted in a total expenditure of $456,759,705, and the revenue $331,143,422, and hence an overall deficit of $125,616,281. The budget, to have a gap of $48 million and end up with a deficit of $125 million.
Who was the Minister of Finance?
And the Minister of Finance in 2005 was the gentleman who represents the member for number 6, the Honorable, the Right Honorable, Dr. Denzel Llewellyn Douglas.
When you said about IMF? That's a deficit man.
That require a pact.
I mean, he would like to make people believe that the little stint, they would like people to believe, Mr. Speaker, that the little stint they gave to the Honorable Prime Minister to be Minister of Finance in 2008 to 2009 would have made some big difference. And it did make a difference. It did make a difference. Right? Because it's the first time that there was a surplus under that administration. First time! First time. It made a difference. And so, Mr. Speaker, a history of deficits suddenly found a breath of life when we had the Prime Minister as the Minister of Finance. And you know what happened? They got a bit jealous of what he accomplished, so they take it back. And they went in deficit again.
Listen, Douglas
Deficit again.
Douglas practice and live Listen.
They got, Mr. Speaker,
It take finance
Mr. Speaker.
and give it to a medical doctor.
But here what happened, Mr. Speaker. Here you have, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance, who is now our Prime Minister, had that great period of just a year and some months. And then it went back to the previous Minister of Finance, the member for number 6. And he took us into the IMF. He took us on the road to the IMF by just building up more debt.
That require a pact.
Swap Willan. Puff Willan away. Mr. Speaker.
That requires some packing. Not just a pact.
And then they want to come here and behave like government start on the 22nd of February 2015. Government began before that, man. Government began before that.
Excellent.
And it is because of all of that why the people of this federation told us they want a unity government. And that is why we are here today.
Yes.
And Mr. Speaker, I did hear my honorable friend from number 9 say that the honorable member for number 6 will grow accustomed to his role because he'll be there for a long time. But Mr. Speaker, it prompts me. It prompts me, Mr. Speaker, to ask. It prompts me, Mr. Speaker, to ask whether the honorable member has no intention of passing leadership to the honorable member for number 2 or 3. But you know, honorable member, for me, honorable member, for me, Mr. Speaker, I welcome the honorable member to remain as leader of the Labour Party, because the longer he remains, the more there'll be in opposition. That's what I welcome. And so, Mr. Speaker, I have 2006. Mr. Speaker, look here. It's not by accident, 2004, 2005, 2006. The same repeat, deficit again. This was a deficit government.
Oh, yeah.
While the honorable member for number 6 was the Minister of Finance.
Another pack?
And they budgeted no money for the pack. No money. They budgeted no money for the pack.
I work on getting out of government. That's what I did.
And when they had an opportunity
I decided to get you.
to name the leader of the opposition as the chairman of the pack, when the Honorable Hugh Heiliger was the leader of the opposition, they named somebody else. They named someone else other than the leader of the opposition and have the brass face, Mr. Speaker, to come to this parliament to say what this bill says. I mean, it actually defies any sense of reasoning.
At the time,
It defies reasoning.
He was the opposition.
Chairman of the back, he was the leader of the opposition.
And so, Mr. Speaker,
He was.
Not in 95.
He was.
Just to put that to it.
Yes.
I wrote to the Governor General at the time and said, we will support Mr. Heiliger as leader of the opposition. That's finished. He was appointed leader of the opposition.
He was leader of the opposition.
Good. No.
I was leader of the party.
You know that wasn't true.
and so, Mr. Speaker,
No, he was not leader of the
He
opposition.
had his office right there at the corner. You know that.
He was not leader of the opposition.
and so, Mr. Speaker,
Honourable members, I'm going
and so, Mr. Speaker, I want to invite my young friend from the member for number 3, who has said in this parliament that if he's in a government and things are not going in a certain way, he will walk. I wonder, Mr. Speaker, if he did not recognize the government he was walking into, the government that turned the parliament in a useless instrument, yet he walked into it and come to tell people if he's in a government that he will walk. What sense does that make? You can't walk into something which is corrupt. You can't walk into something which is dysfunctional. You can't walk into something which is committing wrongdoings in the country and then tell people if you do you're going to walk out. The two don't walk together. The two don't walk together. You were supposed to say to them, look, I cannot walk into the Labour government because you have done so and so and so and so and so, which is against all principle. Yes, that is what you should have said. So don't come here and play a sanctimonious kind of person as if you're some kind of a God sent to this thing, because you have not demonstrated by your own conduct that you would not have walked. You would not have walked, and you have walked into it rather than walk away from it. And so, Mr. Speaker, they're getting me. Mr. Speaker, they're making me want to talk for an hour and a half, you know.
Continue.
But I will say, Mr. Speaker, my good friend, the honourable member for number 1. But he have you talking a lot though. Is laugh you laugh? So you laugh? Is so you laugh?
Yes, I've been laughing at you. Laughing at
I need to take a picture, boy. That's how he laugh?
Laughing at you.
That's how he laugh.
You are comic relief in this parliament.
Once Mr. Speaker, once I hear my opposition friends behaving that way, it means I know I'm on a good wicket. I'm batting good. I'm striking the ball. That's how I know. Once you hear them behaving so. What it means is they don't like what I'm saying because it's hurting them. And Mr. Speaker, while I didn't come here to really hurt them, you know, they seem to let it hurt them. One thing my grandmother used to tell me, if the cap fit, wear it. I don't understand why they're behaving so. The cap must be fit them. Once the cap fits you, have to wear it. It's as simple as that. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to close by saying that when we introduced this bill, we gave the legislative teeth to the PAC to be able to look at what the Director of Audit publishes and look at all the discrepancies that they point out in the audit report and to inquire into them. Absolutely. Because, Mr. Speaker, it goes on to say, if I can find the section here, 7. In fact, I should go to 8. Power to summons witness. The committee may summons the financial secretary. You don't want anybody higher in the government than that. The financial secretary. And she is required to respond and come. There are penalties for not responding. The committee can summon any permanent secretary. I mean, that is the head of every ministry. You look in the constitution and see the role of the permanent secretary. The committee can summons even the director of audit, although they can't direct the audit to do anything. You can summons them for evidence. And 2 says, a summons to a witness may be in accordance with the Form C and the schedule and shall be signed by the chairman and deputy chairman. A summons to a witness may be served upon the witness either personally or being left at or sent by post to his usual abode. The Accountant General is here to you. But I missed that one. The Accountant General can be summoned as well, of course. The point is, Mr. Speaker, there is nothing that limits the Public Accounts Committee from requiring the total and complete evidence to be put before them so that they can formulate a report that properly represents how the government has conducted itself with its finances. Nothing prevents them. And I hasten to add, I do not understand why they want to go on a fishing expedition. They want to go on a fishing expedition, I can buy some line and sinker and get it. Because the truth is, Mr. Speaker, enough teeth is in this legislation to give the PAC the authority, the power to investigate, to analyze, to dig into, and to report to the Parliament on its findings. And that is all any parliamentary committee should be doing, report to Parliament. With those words, Mr. Speaker, I bid this bill safe passage to this Honourable House.
Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. Connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service.